Sounds terrible.
I don't
Doesn't
know, man.
sound like a Drink Champs one.
No, hell no. You crazy? You got the real deal Holyfield in there, bro.
You got the Drink Spanx one over there.
Yo, do you still keep getting muted by guests that don't
Muted.
want you? Well, not muted, but like, they'd be like, nah, chill, don't blow the horn. You get a few every so often.
Oh, the old air horns. Yeah.
Yeah, the
I
air horn.
mean, it hasn't happened that often. But nah, not really, not
Not really.
lately. And I don't. The thing is, I've learned my lesson in the sense of I know how annoying it is, so I try to keep it to a limit.
All right, fair enough. So what's cracking,
Hey,
boys?
I got a question for you, Manny.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Here we
Hot seat
go.
already?
Hot seat, baby. So given that and I guess probably this is more for your older daughter, given that you moved a couple times and then each of your moves were a little bit like, I'd say maybe culture shock, right? You're moving from
Coast to coast, yeah.
coast to coast and different cultural vibes and situations and everything. How easy or hard was it for your daughter to like make new friends or feel comfortable or and just try to adjust to that? The reason I ask is that we moved coast to coast, and we're just in a different vibe now, different school. And my son is, he's got kids that he likes and stuff, but he's still like super tight with his friends from LA.
Yeah.
And they, there's just a certain vibe that they have, and they've been really good about keeping in touch with each other. But it just hasn't clicked with folks here yet at his school. And he's kind of like, and I know it's starting to bother him. Like he kind of broke down the other night because and kudos to my wife, because she could kind of feel like something's not, something's a little off, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, he just hasn't found like those folks that, it doesn't have to be a lot, but that kind of ride or die friend, the the folks that make going to school like feel more fun because you've got the crew or you got a friend or two that you can just bounce off of.
Yeah.
And I'm not worrying about it because sometimes that stuff takes time, but at the same time, there's a part of me that just feels like fuck. Like I know overall, like the choice we made to move is a choice, whether right or wrong. And I think there's a lot of good that came along with it. But there is that part of me that's just like when I see him struggling in that sense, I'm like, damn,
did you fuck up?
Did I do him a disservice and fuck up his, that his friendship vibe,
Yeah. So when we left Florida to go to California, my eldest was no, she was 6 or 7, if I remember correctly. So she was still relatively young,
Right.
not really had a whole bunch of like down friends yet. It was just kind of just little bit everywhere, right? More than anything, her family, like her cousins that were close, and that was her friend group, right?
Got it. Yeah.
So that when we left Florida, that was the difficulty. It was like that detachment and knowing that it's going to be difficult to see them on a consistent basis. That's kind of what we focused on. When we got to California, her being able to see, I think the group of people that we ended up, the school that we ended up going to,
immersing yourself in.
Yeah, the school and the community that we ended up at, I think played a significant role in helping her acclimate and develop friendships, because there were people that looked like her.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was a diversity of cultures, but it's easier when you see somebody that looks like you, acts like you, has some similar interests for you to gravitate toward them, right? So we found that to be the case when we moved out there, and that smoothed that part out. Then my wife and I were like, yo, look, because knowing my career track, moving was really likely. So we had the conversation early, like, yo, if we need to move again, we didn't have that intention, but we just talked about it. We got to do it before 4th grade, because that's when we felt like things started to get more serious with friend groups, that kind of thing. So it just so happened that we closed on the house in November of her 4th grade year and kind of moved. So she just started 4th grade in Cali, and then we transitioned her over here. Over here, in where I live in New York, it's predominantly Caucasian. That was a concern for me because over there it was enough of a mix where you kind of blended in, right? But when we didn't know this coming in, but when we got there to the school, like there was enough diversity to help her transition. But in general, like the vibe of the community was very familial, right? Like everybody, even you go to a grocery store, like people are chill and very welcoming, right? It felt very South, like Southern to me.
You talking about where you're at now?
Yeah, where I'm at now. So the fact that they happen to be white people didn't really play into stuff as much because we expected some sort of culture clash because we're not white and there's a lot of white people. So long story short, like I think for her, she's a very resilient person, which I think plays heavily into her being able to acclimate. I think sports played a huge role as well. Developing, because in school, right, like the jocks are kind of like the cool kids, right? And so I think even though she's very humble, her being with those people, I think made it easier for other people to kind of gravitate toward her.
For sure.
And then her personality is very bubbly and like goofy. So I think that also lends itself to like, you know, people kind of putting their guard down a little bit and just like vibing.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So I was just going to say, like in our case, like I think part of it is like luck in where we ended up. And the other part is just the things that she's interested in that kind of think helped her make those transitions smoother.
What I was going to say, Kay, is you don't think, I mean, I'm pretty sure you think this, and I would say it's probably what it is that I've noticed everybody that comes from the West Coast to the East Coast has a little bit of an issue assimilating. My wife is one of them. Even my grandma, my Cuban grandmother, coming to Miami hated it. You know, it's just such a different vibe. And being that your son was born there and raised, that's all he knew. That vibe is so different when it moves that it's probably gonna take him some time.
It is.
To acclimate.
Yeah, it is. And we're also down south, so that's a whole nother, that's a whole nother culture in itself. And
right.
Trying to figure out that vibe. And he's coming from, we're coming from LA. He's skater, surfing, basketball. He went to it's a Spanish speaking public school, and my wife is Salvadoran, so he's mixed. His friends are all mixed. Everyone's kind of like it was kind of a melting pot of things. And then where we live now, it's actually quite like it's I'd say it's split in the middle, population wise, between black and white. Not a whole lot of Latinos here, but the vibe down here, like I'm kind of like, I'm used to LA and New York, where even if people are living in, separate neighborhoods, there's still a lot of, just
common areas.
Yeah. Here, some, yes, but then there's also a weird sense of like this kind of like fake, yeah, I'm putting up with you kind of
you feel that
on both ends, where it's like, everyone's a little standoffish with each other and shit, and I think that translates a little bit into school as well. So I think he's kind of scratching his head where he's coming from, like a melting pot, and then now it's like, there's a lot of kids that don't have the same interest that he does, just from the stuff that he was doing where he's coming from, and then B, just kind of culturally figuring out, like, why are most of the white kids sitting together, why are most of the black kids sitting together, and that kind of thing.
Damn, I was thinking of moving over there. You fucking me up right now.
That's tough. And your son, like you said that he kind of was expressing that. Was it like a meltdown? Like he was like really frustrated, or was it just more like casual conversation?
No, we pulled it out of him a little bit. He didn't have a huge breakdown, but he started he
Getting
started
emotional about
getting
it.
getting a little emotional because it was coming to the surface, and it's something I think he's just been struggling with because it,
Probably been tucking it in too.
yeah, because like, and yeah, because like when we were back in LA, it's, he's got a set group of friends. He's hanging out with friends all the time. There's a lot of after school stuff or weekend stuff, and here, no, not so much at all. And he's not necessarily asking to, hey, can I hang out with this person? Can I hang out with that person? And it's
How old was he again when you guys moved?
he was 10.
I'm trying to think. When I moved to Miami from LA, I think it was like around 9, 10 where we stayed, and yeah, it was real rough, man, real rough for me. But you know what? You know what? Finally, it was like end of junior high, going into high school, and then high school solidified it. Is
Hmm.
where I made my friends that were my family, my crew,
Right, right.
and that's when I feel like I could finally say I really felt good in Miami.
Yeah.
But
And,
it took
and that
it
was
took several years.
and that was music, right? That brought y'all together.
Yeah, hip hop, it was the common denominator that brought us together. Yeah.
That's
Um
wild.
it was music. Well, one part of it was music, and then I had another group of friends that it was paintball. I was
Hmm.
heavy into the paintball world. And those were two different groups of people that when I bring them together, they identify as those are paintball friends. And
Those are the weirdos. They
Right.
keep pointing. Yeah.
I try to mix them. but
Yeah.
K
but
K.
it took years. I was what I'm trying to say is it.
Yeah.
Hopefully it doesn't take him years, and maybe this is why we do this podcast. Maybe we figure out, or you figure out, we help you figure out ways that you can integrate him into other things. I'm sure if he would to do well. Look, actually, I'll give you for an example that paintball came before the music in terms of like helping me acquire a group of friends, and that happened in junior high.
Yeah.
So your son is active, he plays sports, he does things. So I'm sure if the more he does more of those activities, he'll start to create a family of friends, a group of friends that'll help him assimilate more.
Yeah, 100%. And we'll introduce him to like more outside school things like he used to do, and more basketball teams and things like that. Again, I think just also just like culturally here, it's just different, and people fuck with each other differently out here than
No,
we're used to. I'm kind of taken
different.
aback by it a little bit, like, oh, okay, this is
This is how they
this is
do it.
this is different to me. Like
I mean,
I'm
yeah,
like, yo, I don't
I can't imagine the Carolinas, but I'll tell you, it was a culture shock for me. Like, and the thing is, as a kid, you don't even comprehend the culture shock. You're just like you're in a foreign place. I remember thinking Miami was this outlandish, weird, foreign place that I was in. And mind you, and I'm Cuban. It should be the most comfortable place for me. But I'm not a Cuban that was born and bred here, originally.
Yeah. No, I know the culture. I mean, when I was in elementary school, I lived in the city in San Francisco, and I was a latchkey kid, and it was a pretty diverse school and area. And then I had to move to like a small town on the outskirts of Jersey and Pennsylvania. Those kind of small, like the same kind of small towns that are in New York. They're
Amish
like
country. It's called
they're
Amish
like
country.
well, no, not that far out. But it's like it's like 30 minutes from Philly or an hour from New York, but they got all those towns and stuff, and
Oh, you're a Quaker.
I'm just like, what the I just remember being a kid like this. I hate this. I can't believe
Yeah, that's
what
but
just
that
happened,
and it's actually it's funny, but the parallel is so crazy because like it's the same kind of setup for your son without the latchkey aspect, like big metropolitan, like a progressive city to like the sticks for lack of a better term. So like he's going through it. What he said, I think is really potentially like a good way to try to resolve it sooner. Is like, all right, y'all probably have a sense of like what's popping over there, like what the kids are into. If there's a lane that he can get into something that might be relatively new to him, but like relatively interesting, that could be kind of the icebreaker potentially.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the good news is basketball is big here. I mean, they take this shit super serious here. So, that's good for him in that respect of diving into basketball.
But
That's what he wants to continue to do. But
don't underestimate trying to find kids that like the same things he likes that might not be, easily available. Like maybe try to frequent the local skate and surf shop, and maybe he runs into kids. I'm sure there's some skate parks out there.
yeah, we've taken him to a couple different skate parks. I mean, it was kind of sad because he just used to skate all the damn time, and then we got here, and like the one skate park that's close by, he was kind of like so about it. And then we found one that was in not too far away, maybe like 30 minutes in another little city. Like, so these are, yeah, Carolina's weird. They got a bunch of like mini cities around, and so we found this one that it was dope. It had like a pump track. I don't know if you've ever seen those.
What is that?
It's like this big track that's you can ride BMX and skateboards on, and it goes around in whatever kind of setup they have, but it's got all kinds of like dips and hills, but you just consistently try to make yourself go fast and stay on it, and so it's really good for balance and speed and everything. And then so he got real excited about that, and we went a couple times, and then they tore it down. And I was
fuck, bro.
Yo, you don't know Paul Rodriguez, the skater, bro? Maybe you can connect him and see if he can hook him up in Carolina or something.
I don't know the new skaters. He's a newer skater. I know Mark Gonzalez. That's who I grew up with.
He's probably pushing 40 right now. That's the comedian Paul Rodriguez's son. He got a Nike deal. He got the P-Rod sneakers.
I'm sure he did, but I'm a skater from the 80s, bro. It ended in the 80s. It started in the 80s and ended in the 80s.
So anyway, I'm sure it'll be fine. It's just that the night, it wasn't last night, it was the night before when we started talking about it. I can't front. I went to sleep and I was fucking kind of kicking myself like, damn it. Did we make him did we fuck him up or not?
Nah, because you know what? Remember, as much as, first of all, it's not you didn't fuck him up, and adversity for kids is good, to go through this, because it's it's gonna fortify him, and he needs to go through these things, and luckily he has two loving parents and a safe home to go through these things.
Yeah. This is one of those I'm reading a book. It's called Value Creation Kit, and it's basically about like giving your kid like the tools to handle life. And part of what we as parents kind of struggle with is allowing our kids to go through what's called like healthy struggles, right? I think this is one of those, right? Like this. Yeah. It's very and I read the stat, and I got to pull it up so you guys so I can quote it properly. But like Generation Alpha is going to be, which your son is. I think your son is part of Generation Alpha. So our kids are going to be going through, like, it's like crazy, like 15 different jobs in their careers, move like 5 different places, like tons of like a lot of volatility and mobility in their lives because of the nature of where
technology came up with this. Nostradamus?
It's a scientific. It's a scientific.
Fuck out of here.
Yo, but think how fast everything's moving, bro. Like you don't have, and people are gonna get like, the whole world's gonna be switched very soon by like 2035. Like this shit's gonna look very different, and so being able to go through some of this stuff is foundational for what they're going to have to deal with down the road. So like, I think in his case, like it's a very huge transition, but like he said, like, yo, he got support between you and your wife. I would stop beating myself up because opportunity presented itself for you guys to do that. And it's worked out for the most part. It's just the cultural, like, figuring out needs some work, I think, is all it is.
Yeah, no, you guys are both 100%. And the other thing, but we did tell him, like, look, as far as like when you're in school and thinking about friends, like, don't, even if you're around a certain group of kids just because they're in your class or whatever, like, don't just take that as those are the only kids that you can talk to. It might take you stepping outside your box, and like if you see some kids that you think, all right, maybe they got the same style as me, or maybe they might be cool. You just never know unless you try to put yourself out there and like get in the mix of what they're doing. Because you can't wait for anyone to invite you to come hang with them and shit. You got to kind of put yourself out there a little bit to see like if that's a connection or not.
And I think having the background that he lived on the other coast, eventually I thought like I ended up using that as like it was valuable to me, that, you know, like it meant something, like, oh man, like I have roots in the whole other coast. Like there's something about that, you know, first of all, it made me different than a lot of my peers.
Yeah.
And it kind of brought me a weird kind of confidence in that I already had this experience that most kids hadn't had, you
Yeah.
know, where I could relate to this whole other foreign place. Um, in the same vein of what you're talking about, it's funny because my daughter just started elementary school. We went to the first open house yesterday, which was interesting, and we got to see where she sits. And so there's like four cubicles, not cubicles, four desks, and there's the girl that sits next to her, like directly to her right, and there's a girl that sits in front of her. So the girl next to her on her right, the little girl's like the mom's with her, and she's like, "Oh, I'm like, Emmy, that's your friend," and Emmy, my daughter's just looking at her like, and I'm like, "Yeah, you know your friend. She just sits right here, you know." And the daughter's like, I mean, the mother of the other girl is like, "Oh, what's her name? What's your friend's name?" And the little girl's like, "I don't know." And then I tell my daughter, "Oh, what's her name?" And she's like, "I don't know." And I'm like, but then she sees the girl directly in front. She's like, "Jessica," and I'm like, "Hey, how you know her name, but you don't know the girl that sits right next to you, dude?"
Right.
So it just shows you how weird these kids, like their development, how they form relationships, like super odd. Because this girl's right. Mind, let me not go into that, but the diversity was the may have been the issue there.
Yeah. I
Anyway.
love these. I love these. I love these issues that you got to try to figure out.
You were mentioning something, Manny, about your daughter.
Yeah.
On to another topic.
Yeah. So I've been struggling with how to give my kids some like understanding of what it is to be in a business, right? Like in some way, expose them to what entrepreneurship looks like for me, and have them play a role. So Fly Dad is like the easiest way to do that, because there's a lot of content involved with Fly Dad, and so I find, and I dislike social media. I don't necessarily enjoy like creating content for social media. I love doing what we do here because it's conversational. But if you put me in front of a camera and you're like, all right, act this out, I'm like, ugh.
Hi guys.
I'm not really. I don't
Could
feel
have fooled me with all your weird TikToks.
Yo, that's a lot of hard work, bro. A lot of takes.
A lot of shots.
It's gotta be working the runway.
Yeah. So
let me adjust my attitude here real quick. Let me take a shot.
That sounds good, actually. I might do that in a bit. So I got my daughter, because teenagers are all over social media, and I'm like, yo, let's put that expertise to use, right? And she's giving me all the reasons why not, like why she shouldn't. She's not qualified to be like my content producer, essentially, right? Like my director of content.
Put her on the payroll, man. Earn your leisure. Remember?
Well, this is where we're going with it.
Okay, good.
So, but we're kind of in the intern phase right now, just trial to see.
Yeah, chill out. She's gonna take our profits, man. Our 2.5%.
So she's giving me all these excuses as to why she's not fit for the gig, right? And I'm like, all right, so you understand what's trending. Yeah, she's like, yeah, but I really just stick to this section of TikTok. Like, what's popular typically is like on the other side. And I'm like, I don't care. You're on the shit and you see a lot. So how about we just find a few things that you think are cool, and let's try to repurpose those for Fly Dad content. And so I had all three of my kids pick, 3 things that they thought was cool on social media. We met Saturday morning, and now we have a standing Saturday morning meeting, production meeting. We went through the first one last week. They had fun because they came with their ideas, they showed examples, and they got hyped about it. And they're looking at me like I'm going to kill all their ideas. But I accepted them all because they were actually worth trying. And so they left like geeked. They're like, oh shit, yo, that worked out well. So then we got to producing the first one yesterday. And I threw everything at my daughter. I was like, yo, you're the director, direct. She's like, but I have a question. I was like, all right, ask me all the questions, but here's all that you need. Go. You don't need me to make it. You already have the template. So she snapped a bunch of pictures, whatever. And then I threw it to my social media manager to put it all together. And today she gave me the video back, and I showed it to them, and they were like blown away. And I was like, it feels good, right? It feels good to give birth to something. And they're like, yo, let's get to the next one. Like, they're hyped. So it's been dope, like, to be able to like connect that dot that I've been like struggling with. Is fun. And then hopefully we'll have some good content to show and be able to grow from there.
Why didn't you have them actually try to create it? It's a little, come
I
on,
did.
man. You take some pictures. I'm gonna throw it to the social media manager. Not everybody has a social media manager.
No. So because these things are like there's
You're talking about with graphics and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
It's got more to it, right? So basically, I was just like, yo, because that was another sticking point for her. She was like, yo, but I don't know how to make these transitions and da 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 da. And I was like, don't worry about that. Just think of this as like you're taking picture by picture by picture, and somebody else is going to piece it all together and put the music or whatever. So she picked the music, she picked all like the look, and she snapped all the flicks. And then she basically was like, all right, connect it like this. And I just pushed that information over to the manager, and here we are. So yeah, kudos to me.
No, to them.
No, to me for being grown enough to figure out how to make that happen. Because at some point I was just like, oh, fuck it, this is not gonna work. I almost gave up, and I was like, no. This is necessary.
Patience, Daniel's song.
Patience.
I got one last question for you guys before we get out of here. Unless you guys got more. But so my son has these things at school. They call them, I guess they're considered classes, where you kind of focus in on a certain subject matter for a couple quarters. And so he's trying to decide. There's a couple that he likes. One of them is being involved in the play that they're going to do. And then the other one is like a debate club.
Oh, dope.
And so he's kind of torn on which to choose. I am kind of too. I mean, I know he'd have fun. What I told him before, like, to play, like, look, you might not get selected to have a dope role or whatever. You might be in the background. You just got to be cool with that. And I've told him, I know you probably have fun doing that regardless. He said, but he'd probably also have fun doing debate club as well. My thing, I'm kind of leaning, ultimately it's his decision, but I'm kind of leaning towards debate club a little bit more, just because it's something that we've always tried to instill to him to learn is to be like quick-witted, quick in response, just to have that sword sharpened. So when people come at you for whatever, like, you're able to hit them back quick with the wit or with, just being able to talk, right? And I think that would give him a definite life skill of just learning that quick wit. But if one of your kids were, said, hey, help me make this decision, what would you guys decide between those two?
And what's the reason why they can't do both? I mean, he can't do both?
They might be able to do both later on in another grade, but for like this particular grade, you pick like some kind, because these two in particular, debate and the play, like they take a couple quarters to do. So it's kind of like a class.
So it's like an elective.
Yeah.
I would say personally, you tell them the real about what could happen with the acting, the play. They might get a crappy role.
Yeah.
But I would probably say make your choice, because you want them to do something that they wholeheartedly want to do.
Yeah. Yep.
But you give them the scenarios. There's the negative scenario debate. If he gets easily frustrated, it's not going to work out.
Right. Or he might have a fail if he can't have a comeback to something. He just gets stuck, and then
if he loses a debate, he has to be prepared for that as well. And that's a lot of pressure, those debate things.
Yeah.
So I would lay it out, the pros and cons of both, and have them. This is what I would do, and have my child decide what they really, really want to do. I'd tell them, dig deep. What do you want to do right now?
Yeah, I would lean in the same direction. So either one that he chooses, he's in. But if he goes down the path of the play, the roles will determine kind of who plays what. But everybody's going to be participating to some degree, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would have him like take a step back and like not necessarily focus on each realm individually, but like what would be most interesting for him at the moment? They're both creative in nature, but one is pushing more toward like, like performing. They're both performance, but performing kind of in a more traditional sense.
Right.
And the other one is like conversational, like
intellectual too. Debating is intellectual.
Yeah, they're both like performing, but one is more like almost like the acting is the memorization and throwing some
Improvisation, maybe.
Throwing some whatever the attitude is for that kind of stuff into it, versus you're still performing on the debating, but it's more of kind of off, like on the fly, like you gotta have a comeback for something.
And also frame it like, yo, this isn't like a end all be all.
Right.
Throughout the rest of school, he'll do it. High school, for sure, he'll have opportunity. I'm gonna put a bet down right now, because I know you, Kay, and you've shared that he's dabbled in the music creation world. I'm gonna bet he's gonna go the acting route into the theater thing.
I have a feeling you're
right.
And
also lay out to him the acting thing is more of a collective and group activity, where they all have to work together. Even though debate teams are teams, but when that one person is debating, it is that one person.
Yeah,
debating.
Yeah.
So that's a difference too that you should lay out to him as well to consider.
Yeah.
And I think it's gonna kind of full circle from how we started the episode. Like, I think that's gonna lend itself to opening up his network of friends, right?
Right.
Like, that's especially on the theatrical side of things. Like, it's a lot of deep like meshing of people, right? And to make it pop off properly. So I think if he goes that route, I think it'll be super advantageous.
But hold on, let me holler at you real quick. Do you really want him on the debate team? Imagine when you're trying to tell him not to do something.
Oh no, I know.
But
but he already does that. He already does that. That's why I was like, yo, dude, you debate the hell out of us all the time. So this.
But imagine him like learning all the skills, like the advanced skills of debating.
He's been going hard for wanting a dog, right? And so when we were talking about the other night, I said, well, look, if you go the acting route, then you can sing to me about why you want a dog, and if you do the debate club, then you might have an actual chance of debating me into submission on about the dog.
Well, the positive side of actually the learning to debate like legitimately is that what you could do in an argument is be like, well, if he's in the debate club, I want you to debate my point. Right. And I want to make sure that you understand that side, because they have to be able to debate on either side.
Both sides, yeah.
And so that actually might work positively. Then he could learn both perspectives when you're telling him something, and maybe he might be like, damn, you just kind of right.
Got the Jedi mind trick. Are you wearing the Star Wars Who's Crazy right now?
Yes,
yeah, you are. Okay. All right, nice.
Available at crazyhood.com, maybe. I don't know.
Yes,
maybe.
It is, bro.
Yeah.
You could go to Manny's crib. He's selling them at his crib.
Bootleg style. Bootleg style.
Give him your address?
Yeah, no doubt. It's 1, 2, 3, como pinga way, bro.
All right, fellas.
Man. All right,
y'all.
Big Son Hood.
Later.